Hello, everybody, and welcome to Illuminating Dialogues number 22. Wow, what a special number! And this is recorded just a day before my birthday, on the 22nd of July. And I have the pleasure of talking to our first guest ever on the podcast. It's none other than Tira, my very own sister.
Hello everybody, nice to see you again for my third time on this beautiful, lovely podcast called Illuminating Dialogues. I'm happy to share it with the host and my brother, Harjot Singh, Jhoty, can I say? Yeah, it's a really great pleasure. I'm really enjoying listening to the Illuminating Dialogue so far, and hopefully I can contribute a little bit as well this time round. And yeah, happy to see where the dialogue takes us.
Yeah, and it's been 1.5 years since we recorded that first one in December 2022, and it's now July 2024. So you dumped some lot of wisdom, some insights into the first podcast. When I say dumped, I mean shared. And really a lot of great insights. And I think we both have learned a lot since then. This will also be a podcast for me to reflect on that journey.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we both watched that podcast, and a lot of people from our circle have watched that podcast a lot. So there's also probably a lot of things that we'd like to talk about and share from Know Thyself podcast. And this will be loosely themed around be thyself. How can we be ourselves after knowing ourselves? So this podcast is called Illuminating Dialogues, as everybody knows, and it's a place where we can actually journey in person to maybe a place that we haven't gone before and take you with us. And in going to that place, the sum is always greater than the parts. And and hopefully illuminate ourselves and those who are listening. So my first question to you is, what lights you up?
That's a great question. What lights me up? It's a question that makes people have to dig a bit deeper. How often do we ask ourselves in everyday life, what lights me up? You know, it's not something that's come easily to me. There's things that are obvious to me that I enjoy doing, like practicing instruments, you know, playing the piano, practicing my violin, although I don't do it as often as I'd like. Those things I would say light me up. Things that light me up include seeing my family and friends and loved ones happy, doing, you know, random acts of kindness, as you might know, is when you do something out of the blue for a stranger. That lights me up. Actually, the other day, on Friday, I was at work at the vending machine getting just a wee nice breakfast bar. I think I was in a rush and I didn't have breakfast properly, which is naughty. You should make sure that you're prioritising yourself and eating well, because eating well also lights me up. But anyway, I went to get this breakfast bar, and our vending machine can be full of surprises, and it chucked out some kind of cheesy snacks at the same time, which I'm not really a fan of. But this lady came out of the staff room. I'd never seen her before, but I said, "Oh, good morning. Would you like some of these cheese crackers?" She was like, "Oh, why? Why me? Like, do you not want them? Are you sure?" I said, "No, I don't really want them. They just came out at the same time." And then she happily and graciously accepted them, and it made me happy inside, you know, to be able to give someone a surprise. So going back to what lights me up, it's really, even if I can't fully identify myself right now, what lights me up 100%, definitely seeing others light up is quite big on my light up list. And I think it's a life journey. It's something we work on every day. When we talk to others, experience life, reflect within ourselves, it's something that we build upon, is figuring out what lights us up. And I think it's a lot to do with figuring out your divine purpose as well in life. I think if you're fortunate enough to able to take that time and figure those things out, I think what lights you up ideally will align with your purpose. I think that's part of what lights you up. And then there's the fun things that light you up as well. So if I can just return the question, Jyoti, what do you feel lights you up?
Oh, what lights me up? What lights me up is to help others light up. That's why I'm a coach. That's why I do this podcast. That's why I ask people what lights them up, because I feel that when we're living life and it's not aligned to our heart, I've seen, people working without purpose, people doing things without purpose. And it's like living a life. Sorry to be a bit harsh, but it's like living a life, but it feels like a bit of a shell because there's actually no spirit in the life. And I feel the spirit comes from that heart, comes from the purpose, comes from doing things wholeheartedly. And yeah, whether that be a small thing, a kind thing, and whether that means something deeper that you do have to dig, whether it could be something that's pain or that's something that's pleasure, either way, that the outside sees it, it's something that's driven from your heart. And I feel that's the whole purpose of life. I think it's a human embodiment of life when we live from the heart, because plants don't have a heart, but they have a life in them and they grow in that certain way. But our life force comes from our heart. Whether you look from the ancient philosophy on the chakra system, that divine light, that jhot coming from that heart, whether you look at the scientific and ways of looking at things about the mind-heart coherence, and that the heart is connected, has its own toroidal energy field, or whether you just are a normal human being and you're like, I want to do things from the heart. Either way, you look at it, I think what lights me up is just being in flow, doing things I love, having meaningful conversations, going to places that light me up, talking to people that, with conversations, helping people in a way that serves a purpose. I think that is the light. And of course, there's no light without darkness. But even within that darkness, like the yin and yang, there is light there. So both light and dark lights me up, I would say.
Quite a balanced answer. Yeah.
So yeah, sorry if that was a bit paradoxical and rambly. Not as eloquent as my previous guests and maybe you, but yeah, it's a lot of raw passion behind what lights me up.
Well, that's good. I'm glad that you're passionate. No, it's good. It's nice. And it's fulfilling to recognize what you feel fulfills you inside, what takes you out of the dark and lights you up.
Yeah. And I just feel so important because for me, I feel like it's a pandemic nowadays, especially because in the Western world, in the corporate world, we have a lot of the survival needs sorted. Because often we try to cater for our survival needs, but then we're just living a life. A lot of us is living a life without deep purpose or deep passion, or something to strive for, or just something to do in our life. Whether it be grand or whether it be small, and I feel like people suffer from that. Like if you've ever read the book Man's Search for Meaning, which is Auschwitz survivor, he talks about even just. Oh, the door opened.
Mildly creepy.
Creepy, but yes. Hopefully they're not bad ghosts.
Yes, you were saying.
But yes, even looking at a small plant, even in the Auschwitz camp, he he saw that little plant or that tree gave him meaning of life, and he could survive through Auschwitz and do his whole, therapy practice.
But I
So yeah,
think that you raise an important point, that whether it's a small purpose or a big purpose, it doesn't always have to be grand. Sometimes the easiest way is to start on what you feel inside is a more manageable scale. You know, whatever's in your capacity. Work with yourself. Don't compare yourself. Just, if you're going to compare yourself with yourself. Know what you're like at your best. Know what you're like at your worst. Your strengths, your weaknesses, and work from there.
yeah, because I think it's a life process. Because often we can be stuck, I think, in the mind, but we forget we are a life process. So something wants to come through us, but we have to have the time to find out what is that.
Yeah.
And often that we encounter challenges in our life because perhaps the mind is not aligned with the heart. And so the life process will begin like a river, will begin to hit across the dam that we put in the mind. And eventually something's going to give. And then that will be a midlife crisis, or it could just be a small thing like you're reaching out for help.
But why wait until midlife for a crisis? Have a crisis every day. You know,
Yeah.
you don't need to wait for a certain time in life to question yourself. Although milestones can be a reminder, like every day, you know, you can make that commitment to yourself. However often, whatever frequency you're comfortable with, that's when you can have a look at yourself.
Yeah. And last time we talked in the December, like 1.5 years ago, December 2022, we talked about personality types, INFJ, ENFJ. We also talked with experts in the podcast, both INFJ and ENFJs. So you can check that out too.
Other personality types are available.
Yeah, that's true. We also talked about the Greeks, and we talked about other world religions, and we talked about even families, like generational, and we talked about in Indian households and how we are now a third generation immigrant. And this was all about knowing thyself. How can we know ourselves at that level that we're comfortable and we self accept? But there's a gap between knowing yourself and having a lot of self awareness to actually being yourself and taking that knowing and actually being that in life, not allowing events, people, or situations to take you off track from being your full authentic self. So what have you learned last time? Because last time was very theoretical. You put things into the past for us, and now we want to take it into the real world. So what have you
Physical
learned?
domain.
Yeah, and I think you also weren't working at that time, and I think when you're working, it puts you into like the real world as well.
Yeah.
So, from remembering and looking back to the podcast, what do you feel and could help people also shift from knowing thyself to actually being thyself in the temporal domain?
So, another great question. I think that, well, first of all, once you've done that work and you're aware of what you want to do, and you've split it into tangible steps that you can take. You know, they talk about the SMART goals, and don't get me to name every single thing in that acronym. You can research that if you like. But one of them is that they should be measurable and they should be achievable within a time scale, things like that. I think once you've set realistic steps to break things down, then it's time to start going and achieving them, really, to put it into practice, setting it in motion. Because we make all these excuses in our head, maybe, or just we doubt ourselves, or we think we can't do it because maybe someone else in our life is already doing it, or what will other people in our life think? Or maybe it's just within yourself, you don't have that trust with yourself that you can keep the promises that we make to ourselves, you know? And sometimes that's where having an accountability partner or something might come in handy. Everyone's different, but you're a coach now, so you probably have a certain view on how someone can encourage you, not achieve your goals for you, but they can help you remain accountable. Obviously, ideally, we would love to be accountable to ourselves. You know, you might think, oh, I wish I can achieve this thing on my own. But we're a community for a reason. And I believe that why should you struggle on your own? If you've got long-term goals that you've tried and you've given yourself a truthful shot for a long time, but on your own, and you haven't been able to fulfill it, what's the problem with leaning on your support network or another professional or, you know, friends, family, anyone in your life? What's the problem asking for help or saying, I have these goals? You know, there's often things like, if you tell people your goals, then maybe you feel you've already fulfilled them and you're less likely to fulfill them. Or there are things, there are beliefs like, if you tell people your goals, then you're more likely to achieve them because you remain accountable. But I think that if you lean on people, they can give you new ideas, they can keep you feeling inspired, and you can do the same for them. It's if you have the right people in your life and you surround yourself with people that you admire and they're making the steps, they're committed to personal growth, they're committed to keeping their community and their loved ones happy and healthy, then I think, yeah, you'll be well on your way, and absolutely share your goals with them and see what they think about the steps you can take. They might even have an idea which is more exciting for you than your own ideas. You know, that's why we're here. That's why we're social beings. That's why we're in community. I think that's the healthiest way to go about things. Like for me, starting work, that wasn't on my own. When I tried to just think, I don't want to talk to anyone about the kind of job I want to do, or the job hunt, I just don't want to talk about it. No, I didn't. I was very stagnant. I didn't really make much progress. I wasn't really getting many interviews. But as soon as I talked to people, and on one half you relieve your stresses, on the other half they help you keep perspective, and they give you other routes that you can take, other ideas that you've not considered. That's when I started seeing change, for example, for getting a job. And then I'd like to ask your opinion. What do you think about leaning on others for help to make things come into the physical reality, compared to just believing that we can do it on our own?
Yeah, because, well, thank you for sharing all of that, because I think it's very relevant to people. And I also feel there's two sides. Sometimes I sometimes rely too much on people for validation, right? So there's also one aspect about not trying to look at people for validation or people to make sure you're doing the right thing. So make sure, first of all, you know what you want. And that's okay if you don't know what you want, but at least you admit that, and then you're trying. Because it took me a long time. You know, I'm just making videos and things and doing things that give me joy, and slowly it rose into something. And I think it's also, I don't want to be biased towards genders, but I see this a lot, and what I've seen in coaching so far is that in terms of men or males, that they struggle to reach out and ask for the help, because, and especially for me, it's a lot of ego to overcome, to say that, hey, maybe I can't do this by myself, or maybe I can do it by myself, but actually it's okay, like, to reach out for help. And this comes down to you feeling not good enough. So it's paradoxical to say that, like, trying to be good enough to not reach out for help, but actually realizing that you're not good enough, but actually you are good enough to ask for help, if that makes sense, right? But it comes down to this not good enough
It's
worthiness,
self-worth. Yeah.
self-worth, right? So there's a lot of ego things. And, you know, when I was doing my coaching last year, my training, I was listening to all the podcasts, trying to consume it all, and writing what is the perfect coaching client, and finding out, you know, what country they're in, and blah, blah, blah. But then I saw someone's post on Facebook, Rajini, who was on the podcast. I actually had conversations with her, and she just blew all of the, like, all these beliefs out the water and said, no, you go reach out to people, talk to people. That's how you'll learn, not by going home and making these schemes. And because she's been there too, people have been there and they've made the same mistakes. And you only learn sometimes, not through reading books, but having conversations and to actually do these actions. I know it's so easy to just say that, but I feel storytelling and giving these examples, which requires bravery when it's not theoretical, actually helps. And then Raj, who was on the podcast before, he actually helped me and showed me his journey, because what happens is when people share their journeys, you learn from them. You don't need to go on that 10-year journey. You can look at the mistakes people have made and you can take on board and you can leave what doesn't and see what vibes, and you learn more that way. So I feel it was a huge, huge, huge thing for me to realize what I want, what I don't want. And it's still a journey, but it's important, and community is so important. But what's very hard is managing your energy, because um, as you progress, as you want to do more of your own thing, there might be certain things where you have to put soft boundaries up. And there's no rigid boundaries, but you have to know, like Sadhguru says, when to put up a wall, when to take up down a wall. When communities are giving you energy, when people are cheering you on, when people are giving you ideas, and when other people may be stagnant. I mean, you're not judging them, but just realizing that these these people or groups or events or situations may be actually draining your energy, and that's okay. No judgment, but that requires a little bit of grit and determination to say, hey, I'm quite bad at trying to leave somewhere and keep hanging on like the Indian circle, right? You get in Just Rain videos. And so I kind of rambled there, but yeah, what barrier do you feel people have to actually trying to be their authentic self, maybe when they're in spaces where they struggle to create boundaries? Like, how can they first be their authentic self when they're in an environment that's not conducive to it?
Well, I think that it takes bravery to realize when you're not being authentic. We all like to think, oh no, I'm being myself. There's no way that I'm being influenced by this other situation or, this group of people. But inside we feel slightly off. So step one would be to recognize, oh, I'm not being authentic. I'm not being, I feel uncomfortable in my energy. It doesn't feel like my own, or I feel drained. So recognize that first. And then I think it's complex because ideally we're not spending too much time in these situations, but equally you shouldn't avoid them altogether. I think it's part of growth. We're all different for a reason, right? We're not all meant to be homogenous. We're not all meant to be the same. So I think it's important we learn from each other. Everyone's in different stage of journeys as well. So it's important to share your knowledge and what you think. When people are receptive, help them learn and see what you can learn from others, because there's always things to learn from each other. But you have to be in that healthy place first to do so, right? So, yeah, it's just a muscle, I would say. Practice. Like you were saying, you find it hard to leave early from somewhere. So practice that. What's the worst that can happen? Practicing, you know what, guys, I would like to go home now, or I think it's time for me to head. There's nothing wrong with that. And if they don't react well to that, which I'm sure they don't, but in the off chance that there are people out there who would judge you for that, then that's their energy, that's their way of thinking. It's not a reflection of you. And it's important to just, love them and leave them, respect them, let them have their beliefs, let them make their opinions, because everyone has a right to their opinions. We're not here to suppress others either. But also know that you have to make sure that you're content yourself. Because there's this people pleaser mentality that comes in, but that's not sustainable. You know, you will get to a point in life where you're thinking, am I living for myself? And that regret of not living for yourself can almost be worse than the regret of doing things authentically and things not working out even. You have to give yourself a chance and a shot of being authentic, you know. There's a reason that we have ego, you know, there's positive and negative ego. There's a reason that we have self-worth. People, well, self-worth and ego, probably different sort of things, but I'm going to use them sort of interchangeably. When you have like maybe inflated ego and you think, you know, an inflated self-worth sort of thing, people demonize it. And yes, it's not, it can be unbearable to be around someone like that who's only self-centered and thinking of themselves. But there's also value to be seen in a certain aspect of it. We have to believe that we are worth something ourselves so that we can invest in ourselves and make ourselves better. And it's not to the detriment of everyone else's worth. You're not thinking that everyone else has less worth, but we are all in these individual bodies, so we can all work on ourselves as well. You know, there's always nuance, there's always balance. You can't think of, you know, one extreme or the other. You can't just think, oh, like be hyper independent, I'm going to put all my resources into myself, take from everyone. Nor can you be like, oh wow, I'm worthless, everybody else is so much better, they're achieving more, they're happier, whatever the case may be. You can't also feel that and give and you deplete yourself for others. It's a balance, give and take, but not transactional. Everything does sound paradoxical, and you're like, you're saying this, but also the opposite. Well, everything is true and nothing is true. The truth is the truth, and it's about maintaining that balance, you know, knowing when you're going on one side of the line or the other, checking yourself, and everyone will have different balances within themselves as well. So yes, acknowledging where you are, practicing it like a muscle, speaking up for yourself, living in it, making the actions that you go home at the end of the day and you think, yes, that's what felt right for me, that's what was best for me. And also in turn, that's usually what's best for the rest of the people as well. We owe it to others around us to be our authentic self so they can figure out, you know, whether they enjoy you as a person too. We don't want to be in a fake relationships, whether it's familial, friendly, romantic. We don't want to be in relationships that we think are real, but the people are not being themselves. At least I don't want to. I want to be around people who I know they're being themselves. And it doesn't mean that they're perfect. Most people are imperfect, probably all people. But it means that, you know, what you see is what you get. You can help each other with each other's flaws. You can accept each other. How can you accept someone who's not being authentic? How can you accept yourself if you're not authentic? So I think we owe it to ourselves and each other to practice that, strengthening that muscle, just as you would practice in the gym, religiously, you know, perpetually and consistently.
Yeah, I think what you were saying about the going to one side, give, which I see traditionally, and I think it's taken a long way in a lot of religions, where people are often like super appeasing and almost acting overly humble. And then you'll get the typical like corporate world, which is that take, like that they display, right? Just caricatures. I'm not talking like real life. But actually, what you pointed out is like going back to the stars, like the nature of the heart. So with the mind, it sounds paradoxical, but really, that nature of the heart is really nature itself. And we often get so lost in trying to figure it out with our mind. But it's really that sharp sword where you fall either side. It's the nature of the heart. And I feel the more we spend time with our heart, with ourself, we can unlock that. And when I started to go down that route, I actually started to feel more compassion for those who are not authentic, because, like I said, life process. I feel we're all evolving, whether it be as a planet, as a species, as a personality, as a family. Everything is in a state of change, whether that be growing, maintaining, or dying. But
Sorry,
hmm,
the train has left the
the,
station.
the train has left the station.
And that's okay because everything's
Yeah,
changing.
no, but what I wanted to say is it's a life process, because when we accept, like a seed that wants to become a plant, right? We can accept that it's in the seed stage, and that's fine. Maybe its destiny is to become a plant, but it has a shell around it. And so I'm growing this compassion for people who are not in that state. So I'm wondering how you find it. Do you find it lonely at times? Do you find it hard to do? How do you find it when you're around people, groups or people who are not being authentic, or not um, seeing, maybe caught up in what's happening or their own way of thinking rather than a wider perception? Um, how do you manage to still be yourself and yeah, and navigate that?
Well, I think that when I'm struggling because, in a sense, I feel like when I see people that I believe they're stuck in their head, like I believe I can see it, right? I believe I can see when people aren't being authentic, but also who am I? You know, you have to have that humility. I don't know somebody 100% to know if they're being authentic or not, and I think that keeps you humble. It's important to not think you know it all. Not, you know, it's natural human behavior to be making constant judgments every time we see things. And I don't mean judgment in a bad way. I mean, we're assessing the situation. We're making our own conclusions based on our thoughts, our lived experiences. So when we observe people's behavior, that's all it is. It's a conclusion based on our perception, our thought processes, our lived experiences, taking all the data from what we're observing from them, and also our energy on a deeper level. I think the energy thing is something that's more accurate. That's when you'll feel, oh, someone's not being authentic. You can feel it. You can feel it. But then again, don't assume that you can feel it.
Yeah.
Be aware, make your conclusion, but don't be fixed. And accept that their journey is their journey. You know, we can help each other. If that is something that you feel is your place to do, if you feel that you're close enough and they're receptive enough, then you can help each other. If you're not in the place to do so, even if you're close enough but you don't feel balanced yourself, then I would urge you to do some self-work, or perhaps, you know, maybe you can help each other if you're facing similar things. But don't get lost trying to make other people authentic when, you know, just based on your judgments. We're not some kind of, you know, savior of others before they've asked for help. Because a lot of the time, people need to take their own responsibility for their lives. They need to assess that. Some people they're not ready yet. They're not ready to face the self-improvement journey, or be vulnerable. And it can be to someone's detriment. You can, you know, it might hinder them to share things if they're not ready. But I don't see, personally, it's not something that I'm affected by. If I see someone is on a journey, or if they're not comfortable in their own energy, or if they're just going with the group, but you can tell that they're not really being themselves, it's not something that I take on personally. Maybe I don't even give other people much That sounds so, that sounds so terrible. I like to think of myself as an empathetic person, but I'm not. It's meant to be comforting as I say it, that other people are not really thinking of an individual that much compared to what an individual is believing about ourselves. We may, in a few seconds, process things quickly about others and make our judgment and go on about our day. But some people, I guess if you're spending a lot of time with others who are not authentic, and we're led by example a lot of the time, then you might find that you also are comfortable not being authentic. I think, is that what you mean? How not to be comfortable when you're in a group of people who are displaying behaviours that you don't want to display? I'm not really sure on the question, actually.
Well,
I've talked
a
roundabout way about a whole lot of nothing.
No, I think it's very useful
I'm
wisdom.
lost.
But I resonate with that a lot, because as a coach, you don't want to be a savior. You want to be there as a professional who's reflecting back to you thought patterns, but hold you in the highest regard. So I think a lot of coaches, a lot of even people in the healthcare profession want to help people, but there's a fine line, like you said, and the fine balance. And also one thing I noticed, because I feel like, and I've looked up like ENFJs and stuff in terms of public speaking, and even myself, I feel a very intense passion and energy. And I feel often with other people, when you want to express yourself, it could be that other people could feel more oppressed by that, or they could feel more overburdened by that. But so you have to kind of balance that. Is that their thing that they're taking on and they can have their own boundary there? Or is it that you are over encroaching on them? So like I could be censoring a lot of the time because I'm already thinking, oh, would I harm that person? Would I harm this person? Would I harm that person? But at one point, you gotta have to be yourself. But like Tira was saying, you have to be yourself, but at the same time, you gotta like have that humility and not knowing. So also dropping judgment on yourself, because when you express something, it might not be the most perfect thing, and that's fine, because because if you had judgment on yourself, then you would stop yourself from expressing in the first place, and then you can judge yourself a bit more, and then you can improve, like iterative process. But if you never get started in expressing yourself, then yeah, how the heck can you express yourself to the world? You know, you got to get started, and you just got to drop the judgments and thing. And a lot of people are scared of public speaking. They're scared in talking on camera and sharing. You know, thank you for doing that. But because that's judgment we have on ourselves, to sit here and to actually talk into a microphone and a camera, there's some level of judgment that we have to not bypass, because bypassing means that you're jumping over it. But we have to come to, hey, what I share might not be the best reflection of myself, but I'm still going to do the best job I can to share of my best ability. And that's the only thing we can do. And I think that Wabi Sabi, or accepting the
I didn't understand.
Wabi Sabi is a Japanese term about imperfectly perfect.
Okay.
So we are how it is now is perfect.
That's like a saying I like to say, that everybody's doing the best with what they have at that moment.
Yes.
But what you were saying about judgment, I do feel that people who judge themselves harshly are also more likely to judge others. You know, if you're hard on yourself, then maybe you're in a habit of picking out negative traits, and you're seeing that world through that filter, and naturally you will pick up other people's negative traits. And you said something interesting about suppressing or
self-censorship,
censorship.
which
That's
is
the word.
suppressing.
Yeah, censoring yourself. If you censor yourself at certain times, is that still making you less authentic? Because there's a time and a place for certain things. Do you understand? Maybe you're a toned down version of yourself, or maybe you choose to keep words to yourself. I think if you keep words to yourself, it's all about intention. Are you censoring yourself? Because censoring has negative connotations. Are you holding back maybe out of fear or doubt or being different? Or then are you choosing to be empathetic sometimes and not saying something because it will do harm to the person? You know, not just expressing yourself in terms of to seem like, you know, just for the sake of it. Sometimes I have things that I think might help people that I want to say, but I don't feel they're in a place to receive it. But also, who am I to say if someone's ready to receive it? But equally, from the energy, you make that judgment whether it's right or wrong in that time to think, oh no, I think this isn't going to help them. We have to use our compass inside to navigate and make those decisions. Sometimes not saying something is kinder, and you're still being authentic, even though you're not saying every thought in your mind. But sometimes you need courage to say the thought on your mind, and you're being authentic if you suppress yourself and censor yourself. You're not being authentic if you censor. Do you know what I'm trying to say? I've muddled myself with my words.
Yeah, like, again, it comes down to the balance. But I never even reached that level of thought you have. Like when you're with a person, you're like, I can give that person advice. But then you're saying, is that person ready to receive it? And then you're saying, who am I to make that judgment? But I can only get to the first one, which is like, that person would need advice. So there's like a level of self-awareness and also humility.
Yeah.
And that is something you can't buy from Sainsbury's, you know?
Or any other supermarket, you know.
Yeah.
I've tried. But
Have you?
no, I haven't. But it's something I practice because since a young age I've enjoyed helping people. I enjoyed saying, I'm Switzerland at school, I'm neutral, and then trying to help people work through their conflicts. And then, yeah, within any setting, any minor arguments, I enjoy it. But I've always been tentative. Like, I fine-tuned my process now, so it's a quick process for me to come to that decision. But even if I'm giving advice and immediately, you know, it's not like you make a decision, I'm going to give advice, and you're all in. And now you're not going to back off. Like, still, you have to always remain sensitive and pick up the cues from people. You know, if someone gets their back up, if they're not open, or it's a negative reaction, you have the option to back off. You have the option to step back. I think, yeah.
Step back and stand out.
Stand back and stand by.
Yes. And I was just wondering, like, is there often ever a battle within to lead from a place of integrity? Like you were saying, like, and it gets into the energy realm of like, hey, like there's different conflicting part, or do you find it quite easy to be in integrity? Because I know a lot of people might not even reach that place to have that battle within, but if they're going in this journey, oh, I feel like this, or I should act like this, or you know, it might be a bit of a confusion inside. So what helps you end up taking an action from integrity?
Integrity is one of my core top values, you know.
Core competency.
No, I feel integrity is important, you know. It's part of remaining true and aligning with the truth of yourself, of everything. So it's not something that I personally struggle with. I could see why people might not be truthful or take truthful steps, you know. People might have gone through things so it's a coping mechanism not to tell the truth, or they have bad experiences when they take steps that are authentic to themselves. So that affirms something for them, that when they act from a place of integrity, something bad happens, but I believe, like, in the overarching path of life, that's not true. If you I feel integrity is one of the highest things you can stick to, even if the consequences are not ideal. There's something to be said for people who take actions and speak with integrity, because at least they can say that they've stuck to that value. I think it's admirable. And you can still have integrity but change your stance and opinion and actions. That's also part of having integrity, is having an open mind and being like a sponge and soaking in all the experiences, all the opinions, and then making the call, because there's two parts. There's the heart and then the mind, like that, like you say. So sometimes you're just stuck in your own head, going in loops and wondering, I'm stuck. I don't know if it's the right thing. But I believe in your body, in your gut, you will always know. If you flip a coin, that old one, and you don't look at where it lands, you know what side you wanted it to land on if you had a choice on two things. And then, I think getting into the physical body, getting into community helps you to remain authentic and truthful as you're continually building experience and weighing up what you believe in and talking to others. It gets you out of your head and into the lived experience.
Especially if your community, whatever you're doing, if you're in sports, if you're in business, if you're a musician, if your community is they have a high degree of integrity to them, that will, I think, raise your character. Because even like learning all of these concepts on the podcast, even going more spiritual and looking at various YouTube videos, and realize people put the spiritual label, but they are not necessarily have integrity. And I feel that the integrity underpins that. That is the spirit from the heart. It is integrity, and everything else is kind of like add-ons. But yeah, like acting truthfully, like what I mean by add-ons is there are layers on top of that integrity. And
it doesn't have to be complicated,
yeah,
I think when you have add-ons it can make things complicated, but if you act with integrity and then you become used to doing that, things become much more simple. And you become less conflicted, you become more at peace, and that's a really nice place to be.
Yeah, because you're always trying to,
even if it's not peaceful for people around you, because when you're aligned it might not be comfortable for others who are not aligned or don't agree with what your inner compass is saying. It becomes peaceful for yourself you owe it to yourself to be authentic. Yeah.
So what keeps you then in that state of, so I feel like there's different realities. People create their own realities, and then there's a universe reality. What keeps you feeling that, if you can share your insight with people, how you are how do you feel you are sometimes being calm and being peaceful and being in that universal background chilling, versus like people who might be caught up in what's happening? And maybe like a larger point of view could be like materialism versus actually believing that consciousness pervades through the universe. How do you feel that, not just thought process, but that being, how do you feel that actually integrating that into your being makes your life experience different from people who might have a more materialistic approach?
Well, I think it's a tough one because everyone has different belief systems, and I'm not someone who's ever found it difficult to believe in, well, obviously, not obviously, but most people in the world believe in the universe. And I'm someone who believes in, this higher power, this creative energy, this power within the universe. So I can't compare to someone who doesn't have those beliefs, who maybe believe in nothing, and they might somehow derive meaning out of other ways of their life and place value on other things. You're saying material, but material is not necessarily bad. It's part of the universe. It's part of the worldly things. You need balance. But if your core values put material on a pedestal and look at nothing else, then therein lies the discomfort, because that will never satiate their soul that they may not or may not believe in. I'm not sure how to answer your question, because I just feel at peace, and it's not. I'm not always at peace, but I feel, I have a comfort in my belief system of feeling connected to everything and everyone. I feel connected, and I know my time here is limited as a human in this lifetime. Anyway, there's not much to say. The truth is the truth. What exists, whether I know it, whether others know it. And we shouldn't try to maybe fixate on certain things, on differences. Just be chill, I think, everything is serious, but everything's not that serious. And when you accept the paradoxical nature of life and the yin, the yang, when you take the pressure off of everything, I feel that's when you can just be comfortable. But it all hinges on your belief of the universe. What do you believe? People don't like to even analyze what they believe in. People don't want to look deeper and see. It's one of these topics a lot of people might find uncomfortable because we don't know. It's a belief. It's a faith. We might feel this inner knowing. I feel this inner knowing within me, but we can't know in a sense of, here's the facts, here's what has been observed, 100% accuracy, signed by the creator. You're not going to get PPI back. You're not going to get a refund if what you believed was wrong or right at the end of your lifetime. What you believe, work on that. Think of what feels right, because once you're aligned with that and you're comfortable in yourself and your beliefs, regardless of what they are, then you can just get on and find your inner calm. Nice. At the baseline.
Wow. Yeah, there's one comment that jumped out to me is everything hinges on your understanding or belief of how you fit in the universe. Because we're talking in other podcasts, a me-centered view, or that part, you're part of the whole. And it often comes down to, I feel, just because I feel it's also helpful, it might be good for for one who might be experiencing a certain level of calm. I think it's helpful to share the understanding of how that person sees the reality, because that helps people see things in a different lens. Because people don't, if you ask a deeper question, you can feel it's uncomfortable. And it's not because they maybe just don't know, but it's also themselves. They're exploring aspects that is unknown to themselves, and that's scary, because then who are you if you thought everything you thought is not real? because I feel like it's like a Jenga block.
I
And you
think
ask this question.
I think that discomfort underpins a lot of the human experience,
Yeah.
that unknown vibe, and then the people with the belief and the, it soothes their soul like ambrosial nectar.
Nice.
Like that discomfort and that voyage of exploring and keep learning more, with never fully knowing, knowing the limits of your, is humbling, knowing the limits of your human existence and then accepting it. The ego always want to know more and have it, 100% perfect in their head, have all the knowledge. And it's good to keep that thirst. It's good to keep that enthusiasm for learning. I think it's important. But know your limits as a human. Be humble and, accept yourself. Accept yourself in this life form. And I think then you'll be well on your way.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Yeah, because I often like actually researching and learning a lot, and I'm sometimes in there, but I never take a step back to think, like what I can, like what my thirst is unlimited, but what I can actually consume is limited. But the thirst is unlimited, and to recognize the thirst is unlimited is good. But if the thirst is unlimited, then it can consume actually me.
Your thirst is thirsty for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh? They're better drink up. So, and what do you feel would be helpful for people, just to, if they've listened to this conversation to the end, well done. It's very philosophical and deep. What do you feel could be helpful for them in their lives at home, on their iPad, on their phones, on their computers, on their TVs who are watching this today?
They are on electrical equipment right now. If you've made it to the end, you've been looking at a screen for quite a while. No, I'm not one of those adverts that say remember to have a break, although I kind of am. I think reconnecting with nature, reconnecting, nature's not just tree, flower, dirt. Nature is our fellow human. It's the people that we can speak to. It's anything with organic matter. Can we say that?
Mm-hmm.
Actually, anything in this physical world is nature. So maybe your phone is nature. No, off topic. Yeah, so, what could help people is to have a think about your belief system. It's okay if you don't find out today what you believe in. It's okay tomorrow if you're still unclear. It's okay on your last day of your life if you've not cracked the code 100%. The acceptance, for me anyway, at this moment of my life, I believe that the acceptance of not knowing everything, but still making the effort to invest in yourself and your belief system, if you can get to grips with that, put the time into yourself, surround yourself with things that keep your soul happy or light you up. If you can help another, let another help yourself. That's a really good place to be in. If you manage even one of those things, good job. Like, I'm definitely proud of you. And I hope that you can be proud of yourself too. I hope you can be proud of others and try to see the positive things. Try to see the happiness. Try to see the love within one another.
Wow. I think that's a great place to finish the podcast. So thank you everybody again for watching all of this. Drop a comment below if you're got some thoughts you'd like to share with us, and we'd be happy to read that. Remember to subscribe. We've hit 500.
congratulations on hitting 500 subscribers. I was meant to tell you at the start.
Thank you. I think when we first recorded, we were like 30 something.
This is really fantastic. It's a testament to your hard work, the hours you've put in, the research you do. I'm proud of you. I really am. I'm so happy for you that this channel is doing well. But even outside of the numbers, if you're still sitting at 30 something subscribers, I'm still over the moon that you've kept this up, you know. You are in the flow state, you're putting in your whole, you know, it's a great thing to be able to say, I'm putting in my energy into this. I'm creating something. I'm making something I'm proud of. I want to help others. I want to share what's inside. You know, it's like a flower blooming, and I'm watching you bloom, and it's making me incredibly happy. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. Until next time. Thank you for your infinite wisdom. We're very lucky to have Tira in our family.
Nice.
She's a very special soul. So if you got any questions, you can drop them.
And if you disagree, drop that down too, whether you agree and disagree. I like to hear more opinions.
Cool. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you, Tira.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.